Gilligan's Island is most probably on your list of favorite shows if you are a fan of classic television. It has been decades since it first came out, but fans still love it just the same. The show premiered in 1964 and has remained a topic of conversation ever since. And the reason is simple. It had a cast of quirky characters that brought endless humor and charm. The light-heartedness the series delivered was remarkable. Whether it was Gilligan's silly mistakes, the skipper's tough-but-caring personality, or the hilarious and often ridiculous attempt to escape the island. It was a perfect blend of adventure and comedy that kept audiences hooked. Of course, like every show, Gilligan's Island wasn't flawless. It had its fair share of bloopers and odd editing mistakes that many viewers might have missed. If you look closely, you'll spot inconsistencies, but that's part of what makes it fun to revisit. Created and produced by Sherwood Schwartz, the show featured an incredible cast including Bob Denver, Alan Hale Jr., Jim Backus, Natalie Schafer, Tina Louise, Russell Johnson, and Dawn Wells. It aired for 3 seasons from September 26, 1964 to April 17, 1967 on CBS, with a total of 98 episodes. The plot was simple yet captivating. 7 people set out on a 3-hour boat tour from Honolulu aboard the SS Minnow, only to be shipwrecked on an unknown Pacific island after a storm. The island location kept changing throughout the series, but that hardly mattered, because a real story was about this unlikely group working together to survive and repeatedly trying, and failing, to get rescued, usually thanks to Gilligan's clumsy antics. Sherwood Schwartz explained that the show was meant to highlight people of different backgrounds and personalities learning to cooperate, an idea he considered the most important message in the world. The first season of Gilligan's Island was filmed in black and white before switching to color when the show went into syndication, with the following 2 seasons shot in color. Alongside the series, 3 made-for-TV movies aired between 1978 and 1982. When the show first debuted, it received good reviews, but its true rise in popularity came during the 1970s and 1980s thanks to reruns broadcast in the late afternoons, a prime time when most people were watching TV. The final episode, titled Gilligan the Goddess, aired on April 17, 1967. Audiences hoped to finally see the castaways escape the island, but instead, it ended with them still stranded. At the time, no one knew it was the last episode, not even the cast, who expected a 4th season. To their surprise, the show was cancelled, leaving fans without the resolution they had hoped for. Still, that hasn't stopped viewers from revisiting Gilligan's Island and catching its amusing bloopers. For instance, in one scene showing the passengers asleep, the actors weren't actually Russell Johnson, the professor, or Tina Louise, Ginger, but stand-ins from the original pilot. That same footage was reused in another episode. Birds got to fly. Fish got to talk. In another blooper, during a radio listening scene, the professor appears sitting in the background in a wide shot, but suddenly shows up standing in a close-up. There are also continuity quirks, like a professor wearing dark pants in one episode, pants he was never seen in again. The skipper once tossed a sail overboard, supposedly to scare away sharks, though it clearly didn't work. Then there's the odd submarine gag. Gilligan uses a Japanese sub that's far too big to hide in the lagoon's shallow waters, which barely reached his chest. On top of that, the submarine was full of water, making it completely impractical. When Gilligan climbed inside, the top hatch was left open, and if you watch closely, you can even spot the legs and feet of a crew member splashing in the water. At one point, the periscope bobs around wildly, not because of Gilligan, but because a scuba diver was actually maneuvering it. For a brief second, you can even see part of the diver if you don't blink. Another slip shows Bob Denver wearing a wedding ring during a scene where Gilligan races turtles with the skipper. Since Gilligan wasn't supposed to be married, this was clearly an oversight, as the ring belonged to Denver himself. Bob Denver, who played Gilligan, was in fact married, which explains a wedding ring he forgot to remove before filming one scene. Then there was a Jungle Boy episode where Gilligan meets a boy in the wild. Oddly enough, the kid had a perfect haircut for someone supposedly living in the jungle without a barber, and he wore a leopard skin loincloth, even though there were no leopards on the island. The professor also pointed out that there couldn't be a Jungle Boy since the castaways had already searched the island thoroughly, yet somehow they kept stumbling upon things they had apparently missed, like Jubov, a totem pole carved in Gilligan's likeness, and even lemon and grapefruit trees. In other episodes, more oddities show up. For example, in Gilligan and the Dragon and Big Man on Little Stick, the Howls repeatedly refer to the Duke as Your Highness, a title meant for royalty, not nobility. In one scene, while showing Gilligan how to bench press, the Duke accidentally banged his head on the barbell. Even Mr. Howl, who was usually eager to bribe visitors to secure a rescue, failed to do so on one occasion, which felt out of character. Continuity errors popped up as well. At one point, the Duke is missing provisions he had been carrying earlier. To add to the confusion, the announcer claimed the Duke had been missing for 2 weeks, but the search for him supposedly lasted just one, suggesting they waited an entire week before even starting. Another blooper comes from the gorilla storyline. When Gilligan tells the skipper he saw a gorilla, Skipper refuses to believe him. But strangely, when Gilligan describes a creature without saying the word gorilla, Skipper accepts it. There were also set inconsistencies, like a random window appearing between the Howls' beds in one episode, even though it never existed in others. And then there was a scene where the men planned their next move while standing dangerously close to the gorilla, even turning their backs on it, something no one would realistically do near a wild animal. In the Natives episodes, funny but sloppy errors are everywhere. Mr. Howl swings a hammer and yells in pain before it even touches his finger. Recycled footage of natives storming the island is reused to suggest they are coming from different directions. Gilligan drops a radio, and the antenna changes direction between shots without anyone touching it. And finally, when the camera shows a massive group of angry natives approaching. The following camp scene reveals only about a dozen people. The rest seem to vanish into thin air. Some of the bloopers in Gilligan's Island are so obvious they are hard to ignore. For instance, the castaways often act as if they have no idea how their own tricks work, yet somehow pull them off flawlessly. How can anyone perform a magic trick without knowing the secret behind it? In another scene, the group sits around complaining about hunger, but considering they were on a tropical island filled with fruits, it makes little sense for them to act as though they had no resources at all. Then there's the moment where everyone pretends they can't see Gilligan, even though he is standing directly behind the skipper, only a few feet away and clearly visible. Other continuity slips include the so-called flash powder cake, which would have required an oven to bake, and the infamous levitating table trick, where the wires holding the table are plainly visible. A particularly memorable blooper comes from the bubble scene. The castaways sit eating, and bubbles suddenly float out of their mouths. Mary Ann's shot makes the goof even clearer. You can see bubbles coming from her stomach area and even spot a metal clamp likely attached to a special effects hose. The bubble machine itself was faintly visible behind her face. Another inconsistency appears when Gilligan claims spinach is his favorite vegetable, yet in Lovey's secret admirer, the lie detector test reveals he actually dislikes it. And where did they get the enormous bone used for a bridal plow in the garden? No creature on the island could have provided something that large. The Man with a Net episode adds even more slip-ups. When a butterfly expert arrives searching for the rare pussycat swallowtail, he eventually knocks out all 7 castaways. They are supposed to remain unconscious, yet Natalie Schaefer, Mrs. Howl, accidentally opens her eyes for a brief second, a mistake many viewers might miss. The voodoo doll storyline stretches believability even further. The professor claims that artifacts found on the island are examples of early Mayan craftsmanship, but the Mayans lived in Central America, not on a remote Pacific island. And when the Howls enter a cave hoping to appease a witch doctor, a torch is already burning on the cave wall. It couldn't belong to Gilligan. He had taken his with him, so the clear implication is that someone else had been there before. Strangely, none of the castaways seemed to realize what that meant. In another scene with the voodoo dolls, a clear inconsistency appears. At first, the dolls are hidden, but later they are suddenly out in the open for everyone to see, suggesting the witch doctor must have carelessly left them exposed. Adding to the oddities, the night before the professor is cured, Marian and the others are caught in the rain, yet the following day she is seen wearing the exact same outfit, looking as though no time had passed at all. One of the strangest moments is when Gilligan creates a voodoo doll of the witch doctor himself. How did he manage that? Did he somehow get his hands on the witch doctor's personal items? Or were the dolls found in the cave mysteriously linked to this strange magic? The show never explains, leaving it an unsolved mystery. Then there's a curious goof in the opening credits of Gilligan's Island. When the theme song mentions 5 passengers set sail that day, the scene actually shows 8 people on the boat. At the front, Ginger and Marian are enjoying the ride, while Gilligan and the skipper stand together, and in the back, the howls, and the professor can be seen chatting. But behind the wheel, steering the minnow, is a mysterious extra man. Who was he? Why was he never mentioned again? Was he stranded too, or did he know something about the island that the others didn't? This uncredited figure raises endless questions and has fueled fan speculation for decades. Another slip occurs towards the end of an episode where the castaways are shown sailing away in a small boat. In the distance, above the trees around the lagoon, a building is clearly visible, likely part of the studio lot or the Los Angeles skyline. It's a striking reminder that the adventures of these 7 stranded castaways were actually filmed in Hollywood, a perfect blend of the imaginary world and the real one just beyond it. So there you have it, the bloopers from Gilligan's Island you may have missed. Which one surprised you the most? Let us know in the comments, and thanks for watching. We'll see you in the next one.